There is a strange cruelty to being good, because goodness, when it is real, is not gentle, it's raw. It's forged in the quiet pain of those who have suffered and still choose not to become bitter. Carl Jung once said, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." It is a haunting truth, because if you've lived long enough, you've seen it. The paradox that good people often suffer the most, the ones who feel deeply, who forgive too quickly, who try to understand when others only wish to win. They are not weak, they are simply carrying the invisible burden of awareness. You see, there is a cost to consciousness. To see life clearly, to truly feel it, is to be unable to look away. When others numb themselves, you remain awake. When others bury their pain, you hold it like a mirror and whisper, "This too is me." That mirror, that is where your suffering begins, because deep inside you lives another self, a version you were told not to be. The angry one, the jealous one, the selfish, fearful, instinctive part you've locked away. You built your goodness by banishing that part, and the world applauded you for it. It told you that kindness means never being angry, that compassion means never saying no, that goodness means never thinking of yourself. But that is not goodness, that is suppression dressed as virtue. And so, the good suffer, not because life is unfair, but because their light refuses to admit its own shadow. The shadow waits. It hides beneath your calm voice, your patience, your endless willingness to understand. It watches every time you betray yourself for peace, every time you smile to avoid conflict, every time you swallow what should have been said, until one day it erupts, through your exhaustion, your resentment, your tears. That is when the illusion breaks, the self you built begins to tremble. And for the first time you realize that your suffering is not punishment, it's an invitation. The pain is not here to destroy you, it's here to wake you, because only those who dare to face their own darkness can ever truly be good. And only those who suffer without losing their soul can ever truly be free. This is where the real journey begins, where we stop running from the shadow and turn to face it. There comes a moment when your reflection begins to betray you. You look into the mirror and realize the person staring back feels foreign, familiar in shape but hollow in spirit. It's the moment the mask begins to crack. We are taught early to run from discomfort, to stay in the light, to smile through pain and call it strength, to forgive what we haven't processed, to stay calm even when something inside us is screaming. And so we build a life made of mirrors and light, but no depth. We speak of love, yet fear confrontation. We speak of peace, yet carry suppressed wars in our hearts. We speak of happiness, yet numb every emotion that dares to challenge it. This is the modern disease, false positivity, a quiet epidemic of people pretending to be fine. We scroll, we smile, we move on, but beneath the surface something rots. Carl Jung called it repression, the mind's quiet censorship, a filtering of the self. Every emotion that doesn't fit our image of good gets exiled into the unconscious. Anger, envy, pride, desire, all locked away like dangerous prisoners. But what we repress does not disappear. It waits, and the longer it waits, the more it hungers for expression. You might notice it in the small moments, when a harmless comment pierces too deep, when a loved one's success secretly stings, when your kindness turns sour with resentment. These are whispers of your shadow, the disowned parts of you seeking acknowledgement, not to harm you, but to be heard, to be seen, to be integrated. Yet the ego resists, because to face the shadow is to admit imperfection. It's to admit that behind your compassion lives rage, behind your patience, exhaustion, behind your kindness, the desperate need to be loved. And so we deny, we justify, we say, "I'm fine." But fine is not peace, it's paralysis. The Stoic Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." But Jung would whisper back, "And your estimate is shaped by what you refuse to see. To deny your darkness is to give it power. To repress it is to hand it the keys to your subconscious. It will guide your choices, your reactions, your relationships, while you still believe you're in control." This is why good people break, because their goodness, unanchored by self-awareness, becomes a wound, a perfection that cannot breathe, a light that burns itself out trying to illuminate others. And when the exhaustion finally sets in, they ask, why am I in pain when I've done nothing wrong? The answer is cruel, but sacred, because you tried to be good without being whole. You tried to skip the darkness, to jump straight to the light. But there is no ascent without descent, no purity without shadow, no healing without honesty. The mirror will not lie forever, and when it cracks, it doesn't ask for pity, it asks for courage. Courage to look, courage to see, courage to understand that the pain you feel is not a flaw, it is the doorway. And beyond that doorway lies the truth you've been avoiding, the truth that suffering is not a punishment, but the soul's way of demanding wholeness. Next, we descend into that truth. We face the shadow and uncover the hidden law of the psyche. The world tells us to chase the light, to strive for goodness, purity, virtue. But Jung warned us, no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is the revelation, that the path to peace does not lead upward, it leads inward, into the cave you've avoided your entire life. For within that darkness, you will find everything you have ever disowned. Your anger, your jealousy, your need to be seen, your fear of being ordinary, your hunger for control. The parts you've condemned as unworthy, they are still yours. They do not make you broken, they make you complete. Jung called this the process of individuation, the lifelong journey toward becoming whole. And wholeness demands confrontation. It demands that you look directly at what you fear, not to destroy it, but to understand it. Because the shadow, once seen, begins to transform. When you stop denying it, it stops ruling you. When you stop fearing it, it becomes your teacher. The darkness does not disappear. It integrates. It becomes depth. It becomes discernment. It becomes compassion with teeth. That is why the kindest souls are not those who were sheltered from darkness, but those who have walked through it and returned with light. You see, goodness that hasn't met its shadow is fragile. It breaks when tested. It's the naive goodness of the untested heart, pure but shallow. But goodness that has looked into the abyss, that has faced envy, rage, betrayal, and survived. That goodness is unshakable. It has roots in hell and branches in heaven. Marcus Aurelius would have called this logos in action, the rational order emerging through struggle. To live in accordance with nature, he said, is to accept all of it, the storm and the calm, the night and the dawn. For what you resist in yourself becomes your fate. The moment you repress your shadow, it manifests outward. In the people you judge, the enemies you create, the stories you tell about why others are to blame. That's projection. The unconscious attempt to exile your darkness into someone else. You call them arrogant when it's your own unclaimed power. You call them selfish when it's your own neglected needs. You call them cruel when it's your own suppressed anger. Every enemy is a mirror. Every conflict a reflection. And so, the world becomes your unconscious, an external stage for the inner war you refuse to fight. This is why Jung insisted that the moral crisis of humanity is a crisis of the individual soul. We build systems of oppression because we cannot face our own capacity to oppress. We create heroes and villains because we cannot accept that both live inside us. But when you finally look inward, when you truly see, something shifts. The anger you feared becomes energy. The envy becomes ambition. The pain becomes empathy. The shadow becomes strength. Integration is not about purity. It's about truth. To stand in the center of your being and say, I am both darkness and light. I am both sinner and saint. I am not perfect, but I am real. That is where the suffering begins to dissolve. Because suffering feeds on resistance. Once you stop running, it loses its grip. You realize the pain was never there to punish you. It was there to reunite you, to draw you back to yourself. This is the great paradox. The very darkness you feared is the womb of your light. The very suffering you cursed is the seed of your strength. Every scar, every heartbreak, every shadow, all of it was leading you home. Now, to live this truth, to walk with it, is the next challenge. To not just understand your shadow, but to live in harmony with it. That is where transformation begins. Awareness is not enough. You can see your shadow 1,000 times and still let it rule you. To transform, you must live differently, not just think differently. Carl Jung said, Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But awareness is only the opening act. Integration is the discipline. It's the daily act of honesty, humility, and courage. Because facing your shadow is not a single revelation. It's a lifelong conversation, a quiet dialogue between who you are and who you pretend to be. So how does one integrate? How does one walk through the fire without being consumed by it? First, awareness without judgment. When anger arises, do not rush to label it evil. When envy whispers, do not condemn yourself for it. These are signals, not sins. They reveal where your needs were neglected, where your boundaries were crossed, where your authenticity was denied. If you can look at your emotions like weather passing through the sky of your soul, you begin to see the difference between who you are and what you feel. You are the sky, not the storm. Second, humility before the truth. The ego resists transformation because it feeds on control. It wants to stay righteous, to stay blameless. But humility dissolves the illusion of perfection. It allows you to say, yes, I was jealous, or yes, I hurt someone I love, without collapsing into shame. Humility is not humiliation, it's liberation. Third, courage in relationship. The shadow reveals itself most clearly through others. Every relationship is an X-ray of your unconscious. The people who trigger you are mirrors of your unhealed parts. When you feel betrayed, look for the place you betrayed yourself. When you feel unseen, look at where you've hidden. When you feel rejected, look at what part of you you've refused to accept. This is not self-blame. It's self-discovery. It's the realization that every conflict is an opportunity to see more clearly. And finally, solitude. Without silence, there is no integration. The modern mind is addicted to distraction. Music, noise, scrolling, endless input. But the shadow speaks softly. You can only hear it in stillness. Sit with it. Listen. Write down what it says. Do not argue, just observe. It's not there to hurt you. It's trying to join you. Over time, you begin to notice a shift. Your triggers soften. Your reactions slow. You become less a puppet of your emotions, more a witness to them. The storm still comes, but it no longer defines you. You begin to walk differently. You speak with more weight, not because you're louder, but because you're whole. Goodness now is no longer obedience, it's authenticity. Kindness is no longer a mask, it's strength. Love is no longer self-erasure, it's clarity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." To be one, Jung would say, is to embrace all of yourself, not just the polished fragments. This is the alchemy of the soul. You don't destroy the darkness, you redeem it. You don't erase your pain, you transform it into wisdom. You don't silence your shadow, you teach it how to speak the language of the light. And when you do, something remarkable happens. You stop fearing people, you stop needing approval. You stop chasing peace because you've become it. Not the fragile peace that depends on silence or submission, but the living peace that can stand in the storm and still say, I am here, I am whole. This is what the good were always meant to learn through their suffering. That real virtue is not the absence of darkness, but the mastery of it. And when that truth takes root, what follows is not noise, but stillness, not triumph, but understanding. And in that understanding, Yadav, you finally begin to heal. Next, we enter the final silence, the echo after awakening, the light that rises quietly after the night. There is a moment, after all the storms, when silence returns. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of arrival, the kind that follows when a truth has finally settled in your bones. You are no longer fighting yourself, no longer polishing an image to please a world that doesn't see the whole of you. You are simply here. Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And now, perhaps, you understand what that means. To become yourself is not to achieve perfection. It is to make peace with contradiction. To love the light in you and still bow to the darkness that shaped it. The suffering that once seemed cruel now feels sacred, because it stripped you bare. It took from you every false certainty, every illusion of control, every borrowed mask, until only truth remained. Pain was your teacher. It taught you empathy when you could have turned cold. It taught you humility when pride would have been easier. It taught you patience when anger burned hot. And above all, it taught you to see. You see now that good people suffer, not because life is punishing them, but because they are the ones who refuse to close their hearts. They are the ones who feel deeply enough to transform. They are the alchemists of the soul, turning darkness into light, loss into meaning. The world needs them, not because they are pure, but because they are real. Their compassion is not naive, it has bled. Their calm is not denial, it has been earned. Their kindness does not come from ignorance of evil, but from having met it, and chosen not to become it. That is the quiet power of the awakened heart. It does not need to be seen to shine. It does not need to win to be strong. It has made peace with the whole of itself, and so the good no longer suffer more. They simply suffer consciously. They no longer drown in their pain. They listen to it. They no longer seek to escape. They learn from it. And in that awareness, suffering loses its venom. What once felt like cruelty becomes initiation. What once felt like chaos becomes order. What once felt like punishment becomes purpose. You realize that the shadow was never your enemy. It was the lost child waiting to come home. And the moment you embrace it, you stop being divided. Wholeness is not light without darkness. It's light woven through darkness. It's not heaven instead of hell. It's heaven because you walked through hell and came back with your soul intact. So now, as you stand in the quiet aftermath, let this truth echo within you. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are not suffering for nothing. You are being refined. Every tear was a teacher. Every wound was a doorway. Every shadow was a guide leading you home. And as the dawn breaks, softly, slowly, you understand. The good do not suffer the most because they are cursed. They suffer because they are awake. Because their souls were chosen to feel what others avoid, so they could one day teach the rest of us what it means to be whole. In the end, you do not escape your darkness. You integrate it, and that is your freedom. You do not transcend pain. You transform it into light. You do not conquer the shadow. You become its keeper. And that perhaps is the secret Jung left for us. That the path to peace is not found in escaping life's depths, but in learning to breathe beneath them. So when the world asks why good people suffer the most, you can smile, quietly, knowingly, and whisper, because only those who have suffered deeply enough can love fully enough.